Oh, yes. Subtitles. You let me know, Jagadish. Raise your hand. No, he'll raise his hand. He has a... Okay. Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome everyone to our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. And as always, we offer our humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Deshatarane. And to each other, Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. We'd like to thank Srila Prabhupada for allowing us to come and read to him in his very sacred rooms here in Sri Vrindavan Dham. So for all of you online, you can follow along with the subtitles that are at the bottom of the screen, and this will help your reading of English if it happens to be your second language. So, Haribol. All right, we're on chapter 72. Archana. And her book? Thank you. The liberation of King Jarasandha. In the great assembly of respectable citizens, friends, relatives, Brahmins, sages, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, in the presence of all, including his brothers, King Yudhisthira, directly addressed Lord Krishna as follows. My dear Lord Krishna, the sacrifice known as the Rajasuya Yajna is to be performed by the emperor, and it is considered the king of all sacrifices. By performing this sacrifice, I wish to satisfy all the demigods who are your empowered representatives within this material world, and I wish that you will kindly help me in this great venture so that it may be successfully executed. As far as the Pandavas are concerned, we have nothing to ask from the demigods. We are personally fully satisfied to be your devotees. As you say in the Bhagavad Gita, persons bewildered by material desires worship the demigods. But my purpose is different. I want to perform this Rajasuya sacrifice and invite the demigods to show that they have no power independent of you, that they are all your servants and you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons with a poor fund of knowledge consider your lordship an ordinary human being. Sometimes they try to find fault in you, and sometimes they defame you. Therefore, I wish to perform this Rajasuya sacrifice, Rajasuya Yajna. I wish to invite all the demigods, beginning from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and other exalted chiefs of the heavenly planets. And in that great assembly of demigods from all parts of the universe, I want to substantiate that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that everyone is your servant.
My dear Lord, those who are...
Slow and loud. You have to put it right up your mouth. Slow and loud.
My dear Lord, those who are constantly in Krishna consciousness and who think of your lotus feet or your shoes are certainly freed from all contamination of material life. Such persons who engage in your service in full Krishna consciousness, who meditate upon you only and offer prayers unto you, are purified souls. Being constantly engaged in Krishna conscious service, they are freed from the cycle of repeated birth and death. Or even if they do not want to be freed from this material existence, but desire to enjoy material opulences, their desires are also fulfilled by their Krishna conscious activities. In fact, those who are pure devotees of your lotus feet have no desire for material opulences. As far as we are concerned, we are fully surrendered unto your lotus feet, and by your grace we are so fortunate as to see you personally. Therefore, naturally, we have no desire for material opulences. The verdict of Vedic wisdom is that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I want to establish this fact, and I also want to show the world the difference between accepting you as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and accepting you as an ordinary, powerful, historical person. I wish to show the world that one can attain the highest perfection of life simply by taking shelter at your lotus feet, exactly as one can satisfy the branches, twigs, leaves, and flowers of an entire tree simply by watering the root. If one takes to Krishna consciousness, his life becomes fulfilled both materially and spiritually.
This does not mean that you are particular to the Krishna conscious person and indifferent to the non-Krishna conscious person. You are equal to everyone. That is your declaration. You cannot be particular to one and not interested in others, for you sit in everyone's heart as the super soul and give everyone the respective result of his fruitive activities. You give every living entity the chance to enjoy this material world as he desires. As a super soul, you sit in the body with the living entity, giving him the result of his own actions as well as opportunities to turn toward your devotional service. By developing Krishna consciousness, you openly declare that one should surrender unto you, giving up all other engagement, and that you will take charge of him, giving him refill from the reaction of all sins. Still, the living entity remains attached to the material activities and suffer or enjoy the reaction without your interference. You are like the desired tree in the heavenly planet, which awards benediction according to one's desire. Everyone is free to achieve the highest perfection, but if one does not so desire, then your awarding or lesser benediction is not due to particularity.
On hearing this statement by King Yudhishthira, Lord Krishna replied as follows: My dear King Yudhishthira, O killer of enemies, O ideal justice personified, I completely support your decision to perform the Rajasya sacrifice. After you perform this great sacrifice, your good name will remain well established forever in the history of human civilization. My dear King, I may inform you that all the great sages, your forefathers, the demigods, and your relatives and friends, including me, desire that you perform this sacrifice. And I think that I will satisfy every living entity. But I request that you first conquer all the kings of the world and collect all the requisite paraphernalia for executing this great sacrifice. My dear King Yudhishthira, your four brothers are direct representatives of important demigods like Vayu, Indra. It is said that Bhima was born of the demigod Vayu and that Arjuna was born of the demigod Indra, whereas King Yudhishthira himself was born of the demigods Yamaraja. As such, your brothers are great heroes, and you are the most pious and self-controlled king, and are therefore known as Dharmaraj. All of you are so qualified in devotional service to me that I have automatically been conquered by you.
Lord Krishna told King Yudhishthir that he is conquered by the love of one who has conquered his senses. One who has not conquered his senses cannot conquer the supreme personality of Godhead. That is the secret of devotional service. To conquer the senses means to engage them constantly in the service of the Lord. The specific qualification of all the Pandav brothers was that they always engaged their senses in the Lord's service. One who thus engages his senses becomes purified, and with purified senses, the devotee can actually render transcendental loving service to the Lord and conquer him.
Hare Krishna. When Lord Krishna thus encouraged King Yudhishthira, this one? Oh yeah. Lord Krishna continued, there is no one in the three worlds of the universe, including the powerful demigods, who can surpass my devotees in any of six opulences, namely wealth, strength, reputation, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation. Therefore, if you want to conquer the worldly kings, there is no possibility of their emerging victorious. When Lord Krishna thus encouraged King Yudhishthira, the king's face brightened like a blossoming flower because of transcendental happiness. And thus he ordered his younger brothers to conquer all the worldly kings in all directions. Lord Krishna empowered the Pandavas to execute his great mission of chastising the infidel miscreants of the world and giving protection to his faithful devotees. In his Vishnu form, the Lord carries four weapons in his four hands, a lotus flower and a conch shell in two hands, and in the other two hands a club and a disc. The club and disc are meant for the infidel, miscreants and demons, and the lotus flower and conch shell are for the devotees. But because the Lord is the supreme absolute, the result of all his weapons is one and the same. With the club and the disc, he chastises the miscreants so that they may come to their senses and know that they are not at all in all, for above them there is the Supreme Lord. And by bungling with the conch shell and offering blessings with the lotus flower, he always assures the devotees that no one can vanquish them, even in the greatest calamity. King Yudhishthira, being thus assured by the indirection of Lord Krishna, ordered his youngest brother Sahadev, accompanied by soldiers of the Srila tribe, to conquer the southern countries. Similarly, he ordered Nakula, accompanied by the soldiers of Matsya Desha, to conquer the kings of the western side. He sent Arjuna, accompanied by the soldiers of Kekasha Desha, to conquer the king of their northern side, and he ordered Bhishma Sena, accompanied by the soldiers of Madras, to conquer the kings on the eastern side.
It may be noted that by dispatching his younger brothers to conquer in different directions, King Yudhishthira did not actually intend that they declare war upon the kings. Actually, the brothers started for different directions to inform the respective kings about King Yudhishthira's intention to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice. The kings were thus informed that they were required to pay taxes for the execution of the sacrifice. This payment of taxes to Emperor Yudhishthira meant that the king accepted subjugation before him. In case of king's refusal to act accordingly, there was certainly a fight. Thus, by their influence and strength, the brothers conquered all the kings in different directions, and they were able to bring in abundant taxes and presentations which they brought before King Yudhishthira.
King Yudhishthira was very anxious. However, when he heard that King Jarasandha of Magad did not accept his sovereignty. Seeing King Yudhishthira's anxiety, Lord Krishna informed him of the plan explained by Uddhav for conquering King Jarasandha. Bhimasen, Arjun, and Lord Krishna then started together for Girivraja, the capital city of Jarasandha, dressing themselves in the garb of Brahmanas. This was the plan devised by Uddhav before Lord Krishna started for Hastinapur, and now it was given practical application.
King Jarasandha was a very dutiful householder, and he had great respect for the Brahmanas. He was a great fighter and Kshatriya king, but he was never neglectful of the Vedic injunction. According to the Vedic injunctions, the Brahmans are considered to be the spiritual masters of all others castes. Lord Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhimsen was actually Kshatriya, but they dressed themselves as Brahmanas, and at the time when King Jarasandha was to give charity to the Brahmans and receive them as guests, they approached him.
Lord Krishna, in the dress of a Brahmana, said to the king, "We wish all glories to your majesty. We 3 guests at your royal palace have come from a great distance to ask you for charity, and we hope that you will kindly bestow upon us whatever we ask from you. We know about your good qualities. A person who is tolerant is always prepared to tolerate everything, even though distressful. Just as a criminal can perform the most abominable acts, a greatly charitable person like you can give anything and everything for which he is asked. For a great personality like you, there is no distinction between relatives and outsiders. A famous man lives forever, even after his death. Therefore, any person who is completely fit and able to execute acts which will perpetuate his good name and fame, and yet does not do so, becomes abominable in the eyes of great persons. Such a person cannot be condemned enough, and his refusal to give charity is lamentable throughout his whole life. Your Majesty must have heard the glorious names of charitable personalities such as Harishchandra, Ranti Deva, and Mudgal, who used to live only on grains picked upon from the paddy field, and the great Maharaj Sibi, who saved the life of a pigeon by supplying flesh from his own body. These great personalities have attained immortal fame simply by sacrificing the perishable body. Lord Krishna, in the garb of a Brahmana, thus convinced Jarasandha that fame is imperishable, but the body is perishable. If one can attain imperishable name and fame,
by sacrificing his perishable body, he becomes a very respectable figure in the history of human civilization.
While Lord Krishna was speaking in the garb of a Brahmana, along with Arjuna and Bhima, Jarasandha marked that the three of them did not appear to be actual Brahmanas. There were signs on their bodies by which Jarasandha could understand that they were Kshatriyas. Their shoulders were marked with impressions due to carrying bows. They had beautiful bodily structure, and their voices were grave and commanding. Thus he definitely concluded that they were not Brahmanas, but Kshatriyas. He also thought that he had seen them somewhere before. But although these three persons were Kshatriyas, they had come to his door begging alms like Brahmanas. Therefore, he decided that he would fulfill their desires in spite of their being Kshatriyas, because they had already diminished their position by appearing before him as beggars. Under the circumstances, he thought, I am prepared to give them anything. Even if they ask for my body, I shall not hesitate to offer it to them.
In this regard, he began to think of Bali Maharaj. Lord Vishnu, in the dress of a Brahmana, appeared as a beggar before Bali and snatched away all of his opulence and his kingdom. He did this for the benefit of Indra, who, having been defeated by Bali Maharaj, was bereft of his kingdom. Although Bali Maharaj was cheated, his reputation as a great devotee, able to give anything and everything in charity, is still glorified throughout the three worlds. Bali Maharaj could guess that the Brahmana was Lord Vishnu himself, and had come to him just to take away his opulent kingdom on behalf of Indra. Bali's spiritual master and family priest, Shukracharya, repeatedly warned him about this. Yet Bali did not hesitate to give in charity whatever the Brahmana wanted, and at last he gave up everything to that Brahmana. It is my strong determination, thought Jarasandha, that if I can achieve a mortal reputation by sacrificing this perishable body, I must act for that purpose. The life of a Kshatriya who does not live for the benefit of the Brahmanas is certainly condemned.
Actually, King Jarasandha was very liberal in giving charity to the Brahmanas, and thus he informed Lord Krishna, Bhima and Arjuna, My dear Brahmana, you may ask from me whatever you like. If you so desire, you may take my head also. I am prepared to give it. After this, Lord Krishna addressed Jarasandha as follows. My dear king, please note that we are not actually Brahmanas, nor have we come to ask for food or grains. We are all Kshatriyas, and we have come to beg a duel with you. We hope that you will agree to this proposal. You may note that here is the second son of King Pandu, Bhimsen, and the third son of the Pandu, Arjun. As for myself, you may know that I am your old enemy, Krishna, the cousin of the Pandavas.
When Lord Krishna disclosed the disguise, King Jarasandha laughed very loudly, and then in great anger and in a grave voice he explained, You fools, if you want to fight with me, I immediately grant you your request. But Krishna, I know that you are a coward. I refuse to fight with you, because you become very confused when you face me in fighting. Out of fear of me, you left your own city, Mathura, and now you have taken shelter within the sea. Therefore, I must refuse to fight with you. As far as Arjuna is concerned, I know that he is younger than me and is not an equal fighter. I refuse to fight with him because he is not in any way an equal competitor. But as far as Bhimasena is concerned, I think he is a suitable competitor to fight with me. After speaking in this way, King Jarasandha immediately handed a very heavy club to Bhimasena. He himself took another, and all of them went outside the city walls to fight.
Bhimsen and King Jarasandh engaged themselves in fighting, and with their respective clubs, which were as strong as thunderbolts, they began to strike each other very severely, both of them being eager to fight. They were both expert fighters with clubs, and their techniques of striking each other were so beautiful that they appeared to be two dramatic artists dancing on a stage. When the clubs of Jarasandh and Bhimsen loudly collided, the impact sounded like that of the big tusks of two fighting elephants, or like a thunderbolt in a flashing electrical storm. When two elephants fight together in a sugarcane field, each of them snatches a stick of sugarcane, holds it tightly in its trunk, and strikes the other. At that time, the sugarcane becomes smashed by such heavy striking. Similarly, when Bhimsen and Jarasandh were heavily striking each other with their clubs on different parts of their bodies, namely the shoulders, arms, collarbone, chest, thighs, waist, and legs, their clubs were torn to pieces. In this way, all of the clubs used by Jarasandha and Bhimsen became ruined, and so the two enemies prepared to fight with their strong-fisted hands. Jarasandha and Bhimsen were very angry, and they began to smash each other with their fists. The striking of their fists sounded like the striking of iron bars or like the sound of thunderbolts, and the two warriors appeared to be like two elephants fighting. Neither was able to defeat the other. However, for both were expert in fighting, they were of equal strength, and their fighting techniques were also equal. Neither Jarasandha nor Bhimsen became fatigued or defeated in the fighting, although they struck each other continuously. At the end of each day's fighting, they lived at night as friends in Jarasandha's palace, and the next day they fought again. In this way, they passed 27 days in fighting.
On the 8th day, on the 28th day, Bhimasena told Krishna, "My dear Krishna, I must frankly admit that I cannot conquer Jarasandha." Lord Krishna, however, knew the mystery of Jarasandha's birth. Jarasandha had been born in two different parts from two different mothers. When his father saw that the baby was useless, he threw the two parts into the forest. There they were later found by a witch named Jara, who was skilled in the black arts. She managed to join the two parts of the baby from top to bottom. Knowing this, Lord Krishna therefore also knew how to kill him. He hinted to Bhimsena that since Jarasandha had been brought to life by the joining of two parts of his body, he could be killed by the separation of two parts. Thus Lord Krishna transferred his power into the body of Bhimasena and informed him of the device by which Jarasandha could be killed. Lord Krishna plucked a twig from a tree and bifurcated it. In this way, he hinted to Bhimasena how Jarasandha could be killed. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is omnipotent, and if he wants to kill someone, no one can save that person. Similarly, if he wants to save someone, no one can kill him.
Informed by the hints of Lord Krishna, Bhimsena immediately took hold of Jarasandha's legs and threw him to the ground. When Jarasandha fell, Bhimsena immediately pressed one of Jarasandha's legs to the ground and took hold of the other legs with his two hands. Catching Jarasandha in this way, he tore his body in two from the anus up to head. As an elephant breaks the branches of a tree in two, Bhimsena separated the body of Jarasandha. The audience standing nearby saw that Jarasandha's body was now divided into two halves, so that each half had one leg, one thigh, one testicle, half a backbone, half a chest, one collarbone, one arm, one eye, one ear, and half a face. Hare Krishna.
Amazing.
As soon as the news of Jarasandha's death was announced, all the citizens of Magadha began to cry, "Alas, alas!" While Lord Krishna and Arjuna embraced Bhimasena to congratulate him, although Jarasandha was killed, neither Krishna nor the two Pandava brothers made a claim to the throne. Their purpose in killing Jarasandha was to stop him from creating a disturbance to the proper discharge of world peace. A demon always creates disturbances, whereas a demigod always tries to keep peace in the world. The mission of Lord Krishna is to protect the righteous and kill the demons who disturb a peaceful situation. Therefore, Lord Krishna immediately called for the son of Jarasandha, whose name was Sahadev, and with due ritualistic ceremonies, the Lord asked him to occupy the seat of his father and reign over the kingdom peacefully. Lord Krishna is the master of the whole cosmic creation, and he wants everyone to live peacefully and execute Krishna consciousness. After installing Shahadeva on the throne, he released all the kings and princes who had been imprisoned unnecessarily by Jarasandha. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of this 72nd chapter of Krishna, the liberation of King Jarasandha. Hari Bol.
Lord Krishna returns to the city of Hastinapur. The kings and princes released by Lord Krishna after the death of Jarasandha were rulers of different parts of the world. Jarasandha was so powerful in military strength that he had conquered all these princes and kings, numbering 20,800. They were all incarcerated within a mountain cave, especially constructed as a fort. And for a long time, they were kept in that situation. When they were released by the grace of Lord Krishna, they all looked very unhappy. Their garments were niggardly, and their faces were almost dried up for want of proper bodily care. They were very weak due to hunger, and their faces had lost all beauty and luster. The king's long imprisonment had caused every part of their bodies to become slack and invalid.
However, because in their miserable condition, they had the opportunity to think about Lord Krishna, they immediately saw him. The color of the transcendental body of Lord Krishna saw him now as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu.
Can you sit up straight and read loudly and slowly?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Lord Krishna. They immediately saw him. The color of the transcendental body of Lord Krishna resembled the hue of a newly arrived cloud in the sky. He appeared before them, nicely covered by yellow silken garments with 4 hands like conch shell, Vishnu, and carrying the different symbols of the club, the conch shell, the disc, and the lotus flower. His chest was marked with a golden line, and the nipples on his chest appeared like the whorls of lotus flowers. His eyes appeared to spread like the petals of a lotus, and his smiling face exhibited the symbol of eternal peace and prosperity. He wore glittering shark shaped earring, and his helmet was bedecked with valuable jewels. The Lord's necklace of pearls and the bangles and bracelets nicely situated on his body all shone with a transcendental beauty. The Kaustubh jewel hanging on his chest glittered with great luster, and the Lord wore a beautiful flower garland. After so much distress, when the kings and princes saw Lord Krishna with his beautiful transcendental features, they looked upon him to their hearts' content, as if drinking nectar through their eyes, licking his body with their tongues, smelling the aroma of his body with their noses, and embracing him with their arms, just by dint of their being in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All reactions to their sinful activities were washed away. Therefore, without reservation, they surrendered themselves at the lotus feet of the Lord. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that unless one is freed from all sinful reaction, one cannot fully surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord. All the princes who saw Lord Krishna forgot all their past tribulations. With folded hands and with great devotion, they offered prayers to Lord Krishna as follows.
Dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, Master of all demigods, you can immediately remove all your devotees' pains because your devotees are fully surrendered unto you. O dear Lord Krishna, O eternal deity of transcendental wills and knowledge, you are impressible, and we offer your respectful obeisances unto your lotus feet. It is by your causeless mercy that we have been released from the imprisonment of Jarasandh. But now we pray that you release us from imprisonment within material existence, your illusory injury. Please.
Energy.
Oh, injury.
Energy.
Energy. Please stop our continuous cycle of birth and death.
Here, you can pass it now, because it's a long one. Just do that. Half the paragraph. Remember, we're reading to Srila Prabhupada, so we want to read with fluidity and expression.
Jai Prabhupada. we now have sufficient experience of the miserable material life in which we are fully absorbed, and having tasted its bitterness, we have come to take shelter under your lotus feet. Therefore, please give us your protection, dear Lord, O killer of the demon Madhu. We can now clearly see that Jarasandha was not a fault in the least. It is actually by your causeless mercy that we were bereft of our kingdoms, for we were very proud of calling ourselves rulers and kings. A ruler or king who becomes too much puffed up with false prestige and power gets no opportunity to understand his real constitutional position in eternal life. Under the influence of your illusory energy, such a foolish so-called ruler or king becomes falsely proud of his position, just like a foolish person who considers a mirage in the desert a reservoir of water. Foolish persons think that their material positions will give them protection. Engaged in sense gratifications, they falsely accept this material world as a place of eternal enjoyment. O Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we must admit that before this, we were puffed up with our material opulences. It was as if we were intoxicated. Because we were all envious and wanted to conquer one another, we all engaged in fighting for supremacy, even at the cost of sacrificing the lives of many citizens.
This is the disease of political power. As soon as a king becomes rich in material opulences, he wants to dominate other nations by military aggression. Similarly, mercantile men want to monopolize a certain type of business and control other mercantile groups. Impelled by false prestige and infatuated by material opulences, human society, instead of striving for Krishna consciousness, creates havoc and disrupts peaceful living. Thus, men forget the real purpose of life, to attain the favor of Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The kings continued, O Lord, we were simply engaged in the abominable task of killing citizens and alluring them to be unnecessarily killed, just to satisfy our political whims. We did not consider that your lordship is always present before us in the form of cruel death. We were so foolish that we became the cause of death for others, forgetting our own impending death. But, dear Lord, the force of the time element, which is your representative, is certainly insurmountable. The time element is so strong that no one can escape its influence. Therefore, we have received the reactions of our atrocious activities, and we are now bereft of all opulences and stand before you like street beggars. We consider our position your causeless, unalloyed mercy upon us, because now we can understand that we were falsely proud, and that our material opulences could be withdrawn from us within a second by your will. By your causeless mercy only, we are now able to think of your lotus feet. This is our greatest gain.
Dear Lord, everyone knows that the body is the breeding ground of disease. Now we are quite aged, and instead of being proud of our bodily strength, we are getting weaker day by day. We are no longer interested in sense gratification or the false happiness derived through the material body. By your grace, we have now come to the conclusion that hankering after such material happiness is just like searching for water in desert myriad. We are no longer interested in the result of our pious activities, such as performing great sacrifice to be elevated to the heavenly planet. We now understand that such elevation to the higher material standard may sound very relishable, but actually there cannot be any happiness within this material world. We pray for your Lordship to favor us by instructing us how to engage in transcendental loving service of your lotus feet, so that we may never forget your internal relationship with your Lordship. We do not want liberation from the entanglement of the material exchange. By your will, we may take birth in any species of life. It doesn't matter. We simply pray that we never forget your lotus feet under any circumstance. Dear Lord, we now surrender unto your lotus feet by offering our respectful obeisances unto you, because you are the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, you are the super soul in everyone's heart, and you are the Lord Hari, who can take away all miserable condition of the material exchange. Dear Lord, your name is Govinda, the receiver of all pleasure, because one who is engaged in satisfying your senses satisfies his own senses automatically. Dear Lord, you are ever famous, for you can put an end to all the miseries of your devotee. Please therefore accept us as your surrendered servant.
After hearing the prayers of the kings released from the prison of Jarasandha, Lord Krishna, who is always the protector of surrendered souls and the ocean of mercy for the devotees, replied to them as follows in his sweet transcendental voice, which was grave and full of meaning. My dear kings, he said, I bestow upon you my blessings. From this day forth, you will be attached to my devotional service without fail. I give you this benediction as you have desired. You may know from me that I am always sitting within your hearts as the super soul, and because you have now turned your faces towards me, I am master of everyone, shall always give you good counsel, so that you may never forget me, and so that gradually you will come back to Godhead. My dear kings, your decision to give up all connection of material enjoyment and turn instead towards my devotional service is factually the symptoms of your good fortune. Henceforward, you will always be blessed with blissful life. I confirm that all you have spoken about me in your prayers is factual. It is a fact that the materially opulent position of one who is not fully conscious is the cause of his downfall and is becoming a victim of the illusory energy. In the past, there were many rebellious kings such as Haya, Nahusha, Vena, Ravana, and Narakasura. Some of them were demigods and some of them demons. But because of their false perception of their position, they fell from their exalted post, and thus they no longer remained kings of their respective kingdoms and were lost in the violence of abominable conditional life.
Every one of you must understand that anything material has its starting point, growth, maintenance, expansion, deterioration, and finally disappearance. All material bodies are subject to these 6 conditions, and any relative acquisitions accumulated by this body are definitely subject to final destruction. Therefore, no one should be attached to perishable things. As long as one is within this material body, he should be very cautious in worldly dealings. the most perfect way of life in this material world is simply to be devoted to my transcendental loving service and to execute honestly the prescribed duties of one's particular position. As far as you are concerned, you all belong to Kshatriya families. Therefore, you should live honestly, according to the prescribed duties befitting the royal order, and make your citizens happy in all respects. Keep to the standard of Kshatriya life. Do not beget children out of sense gratification, but simply take charge of the welfare of the people in general. Everyone takes birth in this material world in continuation of his previous life, and thus he is subject to the stringent laws of nature, such as birth and death, distress and happiness, profit and loss. One should not be disturbed by duality, but should always be fixed in my devotional service, and thus remain balanced in mind and satisfied in all circumstances, considering all things to be given by me. Thus, one can live a very happy and peaceful life even within this material condition. In other words, one should actually be callous to this material body and its byproducts and should be unaffected by them. One should remain fully satisfied in the interests of the spirit soul and engage in the service of the super soul. One should engage his mind only in thinking of me. One should simply become my devotee. One should simply worship me. And one should offer his respectful obeisances unto me alone. In this way, one can cross over this ocean of nations very easily and at the end come back to me. In conclusion, your lives should constantly be engaged in my service.
After delivering these instructions to the kings and princes, Lord Krishna immediately arranged for their comfort and asked many servants and maidservants to take care of them. Lord Krishna requested Sahadev, the son of King Jarasandha, to supply all necessities to the kings and show them all respect and honor. In pursuance of the order of Lord Krishna, Sahadev offered them all honor and presented them with ornaments, garments, garlands, and other paraphernalia. After taking their baths and dressing very nicely, the king appeared happy and gentle. Then they were supplied nice foods. Lord Krishna supplied everything for their comfort, as befitting their royal positions. Since the kings were so mercifully treated by Lord Krishna, they felt great happiness and their bright faces appeared just like the stars in the sky after the end of their rainy seasons. All nicely dressed and ornamented, their earrings glittering, they were seated on the chariot bedecked with gold and jewels and drawn by decorated horses. After seeing that each was taken care of, Lord Krishna, in a sweet voice, asked them to return to their respective kingdoms. By his liberal behavior, unparalleled in the history of the world, Lord Krishna released all the kings who had been in the clutches of Jarasandha. And thus, the kings, being fully satisfied, began to chant his holy name, think of his holy form, and glorify his transcendental pastimes as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus engaged, they returned to their respective kingdoms. The citizens of their kingdoms were greatly pleased to see them return, and when they heard the kind dealings of Lord Krishna, they were all very happy. The kings began to manage their affairs of their kingdoms in accordance with the instructions of Lord Krishna, and all those kings and their subjects passed their days and happily. This is a vivid example of a Krishna conscious society. If the people of the world, taking into account their respective material qualities, divide the whole society into 4 orders of material progress and 4 orders for spiritual progress, centering these orders on Krishna and following the instructions of Krishna as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the entire human society will undoubtedly be happy. This is the lesson we have to take from this incident? Oh, sorry.
After the scourging, the annihilation of Jarasandha by Bhimsena, and after being properly honored by Sahadeva, the son of Jarasandha, Lord Krishna, accompanied by Bhimsena and Arjun, returned to the city of Hastinapur. When they reached the precincts of Hastinapur, they blew their respective conch shells, and by hearing the sound vibration and understanding who was arriving, everyone immediately became cheerful. But the enemies of Krishna, upon hearing the conch shells, were very sorry. The citizens of Indraprastha felt their hearts become joyful simply by hearing the vibration of Krishna's conch shell, because they could understand that Jarasandha had been killed. Now the performance of the Rajsurya sacrifice by King Yudhishthira was almost certain. Bhimsena, Arjuna and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, arrived before King Yudhishthira and offered their respects to the king. King Yudhishthira attentively heard the narrations of the killing of Jarasandha and the setting free of the kings. He also heard of the tactics adopted by Krishna to kill Jarasandha. The king was naturally affectionate towards Krishna, but after hearing the story, he became even more bound to him in love. Tears of ecstasy glided from his eyes, and he was so stunned that he was almost unable to speak. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 73rd chapter of Krishna. Lord Krishna returns to the city of Hastinapur. Hari Bol.
So we'll conclude our reading of Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. There's just a few minutes before 5:30. But next week is chapter 74, the deliverance of Shishupal. So everybody can come back next week for that adventure. Prabhupada, we would like to thank you for allowing us to come every Sunday and read Krishna book to you. Such a delight. Let us offer our respectful obeisances to Prabhupada and to each other. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane, and to each other Vanchakalpa Durbhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book, Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda.